Hello and welcome to the second revision video looking at life in Nazi Germany. This time looking at the darker side, the more negative side. One of the points we've tried to make with the first half of this, looking at the positives are visible. Touch it, feel it, taste it, see it, experience it. The negatives are harder to grab hold of. A loss of freedom, a loss of political rights, a loss of democracy. What does that look like? There's an old saying, if you can't pick it up and put it in a wheelbarrow, it doesn't exist. And I know it's a silly saying, but it sort of makes sense. How do you measure loss of political rights? You can't see it, you can't use it to pay for things, you can't eat it, it doesn't keep you warm in winter. The positives do, and a lot of the negative side of stuff is not visible. If you look at the speed at which Hitler turns Germany from a democracy to a dictatorship, the way in which he's taking care of opposition, political opposition, is very rapid. And a lot of it is happening in meetings and offices which are private. So when he gets most of the right-wing political parties to join the Nazi Party, that's done in closed rooms, in private meetings, and it's not public. When the Concordat deal is done with the Catholic Centre Party, which makes them cease to exist as a political force, that's a meeting that's done in private, in secret. It's not public. And it's harder to see something that doesn't exist. When political opposition just doesn't exist anymore, you just don't see it, which means you don't notice it. If you also look at the groups that the Nazis target, and again, a lot of that targeting is done in secret, at night, individually, which you don't always see. You don't see it as publicly. Let's look at the groups that the Nazis do target, because we tend to focus on the Jews, quite rightly, because it's such a large group. In total, 6 million Jewish people will be killed by the Nazis during the Holocaust. But they're not the only group. 30,000 men and women with hereditary illnesses were forcibly sterilised. 5,000 severely mentally handicapped babies and children were killed between 1939 and 1945. 72,000 mentally ill adults were killed between 1939 and 1941. 4/5 of Germany's gypsy population were killed. Other groups taken to concentration camps included homosexuals, alcoholics, the homeless, prostitutes, habitual criminals and beggars. And often people don't notice or don't want to notice those things. And it's that wonderful moral question, I suppose. What would you do? You see somebody taking somebody else away, do you stand in up and stop them? If you do that, you draw attention to yourself. Do you think about protecting yourself and your family more, or do you think about protecting somebody else? What you've also got is the Nazi Party has managed to infiltrate all of the forces of authority. The police force, the army, the SS and initially the SA are incorporated into the police force. They're given official badges, they're given official status. Most of us will always obey a policeman simply because the policeman says do something. We do it, because we respect this symbol of law and authority. If that symbol of law and authority is abusing their power, it becomes very difficult to stop them. And there is the fear factor. These groups are organised, they're powerful, they are ruthless. You see specific incidents of ruthlessness. The Night of the Long Knives in 1934, when Hitler's closest ally, Rom, is destroyed and killed. The Kristallnacht, the Night of Shattered Glass in November 1938, when Jews are openly attacked and victimised across Germany. Those serve a message to the rest of the German population. Keep quiet. stay behind curtains indoors, don't argue, don't fight back. There is some opposition in Germany. There are individuals who stand up and speak out. There's a lot of people leaving the country. We talked about Marlene Dietrich, the famous actress of the 1920s, and Fritz Lang, one of the first great German directors. Both of them leave Germany in the 1930s. Albert Einstein leaves Germany in the 1930s. These are people that realise this is not a place I want to be in, it's not a country I want to support. There is some other more organised, widespread opposition. The swing movement was made up of middle-class teenagers who listened to banned English and American jazz music, refused to join the Hitler Youth, deliberately dressed untidily as a way of reacting against the Hitler Youth. The Edelweiss Pirates were one example of gangs of working-class teenagers, mainly aged between 14 and 17, who openly mocked Hitler and the Nazis and other young people. And the Nazis didn't really seem to know what to do with them. They did break up the gangs, but were reluctant to send them to concentration camps. However, in 1944, some pirates in Cologne sheltered army deserters, stole weapons, and took part in an attack on the Gestapo. 12 of the leaders of this group were rounded up and hanged. These groups are examples of how some Germans resisted the extent to which the Nazis tried to control German people's lives. Other groups included the Roving Dudes, the Kittleback Pirates, and the Navajos. But for most German people, by the time they wanted to oppose and they wanted to say something, it was too late. The organisations and the processes that would allow them to complain didn't exist anymore. Opposition newspapers, opposition political parties, legal help had all gone by that point. And of course, once you get to 1939, the whole atmosphere and attitude changes. At that point, Germany is at war. And when a country goes to war, that creates a sense of nationalism, it creates a sense of pride, it creates a sense of patriotism and support for the government, no matter who the government is. It also makes it very dangerous to criticise. If you criticise your government during war, you can be accused of treason. You can be branded a traitor. You can be shot on the spot. So there's the two sides to Nazi Germany. There's lots and lots of positives, lots and lots of good stuff, and the awful dark stuff as well. One of the groups of Germans who gave interviews after a German banker, I was interviewed for a programme called The Nazis, A Warning from History, which the BBC showed. You can still get it on YouTube. Go watch it, it's great. One of the things that he said in an interview was that we always knew, he's talking about himself in the 1930s, and he was a young man in his late 20s, he said, we always knew there was a bad side to the Nazis. We always knew there was that racist, anti-Semitic, dangerous bit. But there was an awful lot of good as well. There was an awful lot of positive stuff. There was a lot of stuff that was about pride, that was about nationalism, that was about rebuilding Germany. There was a lot of reasons to like the Nazi Party. And this particular German said what most of them hoped and believed was that over time, the good side of the Nazi Party would become more dominant, and the lunatic, the mad, the extremist, dangerous element would be pushed out. And that's why they supported the Nazi Party. They were wrong. What happens is the bad side of the Nazi Party becomes more dominant because there's nobody there to stop them. And these people who are bullies, who are psychopaths in many cases, when they're encouraged, when they're allowed to do things, will just do them more. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember, when you do exam questions about Nazi Germany, get that balance in. Get the two sides in. Positives and negatives. People don't support a government just because they're scared of them. They have to have positive reasons to support them as well. Thank you very much.